Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel UES Defiance, watching the stars through the main view screen. 3 months into their mission, they had traveled farther from Earth than any human had ever gone. The ship hummed quietly around him as his crew worked at their stations. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," said Chief Navigator Lisa Carter from her console. She frowned at the readings on her screen. "There's an energy signature about 2 million kilometers ahead. It doesn't match anything in our database." Jake walked over to her station and looked at the display. A small blip showed on the long-range sensors, pulsing with a steady rhythm. Could it be a natural phenomenon? Maybe some kind of pulsar we haven't cataloged yet? Lisa shook her head. "No, sir. The energy pattern is too regular, too organized. This is definitely artificial. Something made this." The bridge fell silent except for the soft beeping of instruments. Jake felt his heart rate increase. This could be humanity's first contact with alien technology. After decades of searching the galaxy and finding nothing but empty planets and dead rocks, they might have finally found proof that other intelligent life existed. "Dr. Blake, please report to the bridge," Jake said into the ship's communication system. Within minutes, Dr. Peter Blake arrived. He was a thin man with gray hair who specialized in studying ancient civilizations and artifacts. If anyone could figure out what they had found, it would be him. "What do we have, Captain?" Dr. Blake asked, adjusting his glasses as he looked at the sensor data. "Something that's sending out a regular energy pulse. Lisa says it's artificial." Dr. Blake studied the readings carefully. "The pattern is definitely not natural. It's too precise, too mathematical. Captain, I recommend we investigate. This could be the discovery we've been hoping for." Jake nodded. "Helmsman, set course for the energy source. Reduce speed to 1/4 impulse. I want us to approach slowly and carefully." As the Defiance moved closer, the object became visible on their screens. It was massive, easily 10 kilometers long and 3 kilometers wide. The structure looked ancient, with dark metal surfaces that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols covered its hull, glowing faintly with the same energy that had attracted their attention. "My God," whispered Communications Officer Amy Rodriguez. "It's a space station, but it looks like it's been drifting here for thousands of years." The station rotated slowly in space, and as it turned, they could see that parts of it were damaged. Sections of the hull had been torn away, exposing twisted metal and dark corridors within. But the energy source continued to pulse steadily from what appeared to be the station's central core. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple energy signatures now," Lisa reported. "The main pulse is coming from the center, but there are smaller signals throughout the structure. Some kind of automated systems are still running." Dr. Blake was practically bouncing with excitement. "Captain, we need to board that station. This could be the greatest archaeological discovery in human history. Think about what we could learn from an alien civilization." Jake considered the risks. They were millions of kilometers from the nearest human outpost, and they had no idea what might be waiting for them on that ancient station, but the potential rewards were enormous. Humanity had been searching for signs of other intelligent life for over a century. They couldn't pass up this opportunity. "Amy, scan for any active communication signals. I want to know if anyone or anything is trying to talk to us." Amy worked at her console for several minutes, fine-tuning the communication arrays. Suddenly, her screen lit up with activity. "Captain, there's definitely a signal coming from the station. It's complex, mathematical. The pattern repeats every 37 seconds. Can you decode it?" "I'm trying, sir. The signal contains multiple layers of information. It's like nothing I've ever seen before. The base pattern seems to be some kind of positioning data, but there are other elements I can't identify yet." Jake made his decision. "Dr. Blake, prepare a boarding team. Take Security Chief Dan Walsh and 2 Marines with you. I want full environmental suits and complete sensor sweeps before anyone enters that station." "Yes, sir," Dr. Blake replied, already heading for the door. "This is going to be incredible." 2 hours later, the boarding team was ready. They used one of the Defiance's shuttles to approach the station, looking for a docking port or airlock. The structure was even more impressive up close. The metal seemed to shimmer with an inner light, and the symbols on the hull pulsed in sync with the energy readings. "There," Dan Walsh pointed to an opening in the station side. That looks like it might be a docking bay. The shuttle maneuvered carefully into the opening. Ancient mechanisms activated as they approached, and a containment field sealed the bay behind them. Atmosphere readings showed that the bay was pressurized, though with a gas mixture that humans couldn't breathe. Dr. Blake was the first to step onto the alien station. His suit's lights illuminated corridors that stretched away into darkness. The walls were covered with the same glowing symbols they had seen on the outside, and the steady pulse of energy seemed to come from deeper within the structure. "The architecture is incredible," Dr. Blake said over the communication link. "These passages are clearly designed for beings that were taller than humans, maybe 2.5 meters. The proportions are all wrong for human use. They made their way toward the energy source, following corridors that seemed to go on forever. Some sections of the station were completely dark and dead, while others still had power flowing through their systems. Emergency lighting activated as they passed, casting strange shadows on the walls. Finally, they reached what appeared to be the station's central chamber. It was a vast spherical room with a complex device at its center. The device was clearly the source of the energy pulses, and it was surrounded by banks of equipment that still functioned after all these years. "Amy, are you getting this?" Dr. Blake asked, knowing that their helmet cameras were transmitting everything back to the ship. "Yes, sir. And the signal is much stronger here. I'm getting massive amounts of data. This isn't just a beacon, it's some kind of database. There are star charts, mathematical formulas, and what looks like text in dozens of different languages." Dr. Blake approached one of the active consoles. The symbols on its surface were different from the others they had seen, more complex and detailed. As he got closer, the console responded to his presence, and new information began scrolling across its display. "Captain?" Amy's voice came through the communication link and she sounded worried. "I'm translating more of the signal. You're not going to like what I'm finding." Back on the bridge, Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. "What is it, Amy?" "The station is some kind of marker buoy. It's been broadcasting information about this region of space for over 10,000 years. According to the data I'm decoding, this entire area is marked as a quarantine zone." "Quarantine for what?" Amy was quiet for a moment as she worked to translate more of the alien text. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "For primitive species under development. Captain, Earth is inside this quarantine zone. We're the primitive species they're talking about." Jake stared at the view screen, his mind racing. "What else does it say?" "There's more, sir. Much more. The signal contains warnings about developmental periods and intervention protocols. And, Captain, there's a timer. According to this data, humanity's developmental period expired 6 months ago." The bridge was completely silent. Everyone understood the implications. Humanity had been living in a cosmic zoo, watched and monitored by advanced alien civilizations, and now their protection time was over. "Amy, what happens when the developmental period expires?" Her answer sent chills through everyone who heard it. "Integration or elimination protocols to commence immediately. Captain, we're not alone in the galaxy, and whoever's out there knows exactly where we are." Admiral Kate Sullivan walked quickly through the halls of Earth Defense Command, her boots clicking on the polished floor. It had been 72 hours since the UES Defiance had transmitted their discovery, and the entire planet was in a state of controlled panic. Every military base on Earth was now on highest alert. She entered the main briefing room where the emergency council was already assembled. General Linda Brooks sat at the large table, studying data on multiple screens. Intelligence Officer Tony Garcia was typing rapidly on his computer, trying to decode more information from the alien beacon. Dr. Helen Park, Earth's best expert on languages, was working with a team of scientists to translate the alien warnings. "Report," Admiral Sullivan said as she took her seat at the head of the table. Tony Garcia looked up from his screen. "Admiral, we've made significant progress. On the alien transmissions, the news is not good. We've identified at least 7 different alien languages in the beacon's database. This suggests a large coalition of species, not just one alien race." Dr. Park nodded in agreement. "The linguistic patterns indicate highly advanced civilizations. Some of these languages are incredibly complex. far more sophisticated than any human language, but we've managed to translate the main message. She activated the main display screen showing the translated text. Admiral Sullivan read it carefully, her expression growing more serious with each line. Attention developing species of Sol 3. Your developmental observation period has concluded. You have achieved space travel capabilities and planetary communication networks. Integration into the Galactic Collective is now mandatory. Compliance vessels will arrive within one solar rotation to begin guided integration procedures. Resistance will result in corrective action protocols. General Brooks leaned forward. Admiral, there's more. We've been monitoring deep space sensors for the past day. We're detecting movement in the outer system. Something big is coming. Tony Garcia pulled up another screen showing sensor readings from the deep space monitoring stations. We count at least 40 large vessels approaching from different directions. They're using some kind of faster-than-light travel we don't understand. Based on their current speed, they'll reach Earth's orbit in approximately 18 hours. Admiral Sullivan felt her stomach tighten. 40 alien ships was far more than Earth's defenses could handle with conventional weapons. What do we know about their capabilities? We've analyzed the energy signatures from their ships, Tony replied. Their technology is hundreds of years ahead of ours. Their weapon systems alone produce more energy than our entire global power. Grid. Dr. Park cleared her throat. Admiral, I've translated more of the database from the beacon. The aliens call themselves the Galactic Collective. They're an alliance of species that controls most of this region of the galaxy.
According to their records, they've been watching Earth for over 2,000 years. Watching us? Admiral Sullivan asked. For what purpose? They monitor what they call developing species to determine if they're suitable for integration.
Into their collective. Species that develop too aggressively or show too much independence are considered dangerous and are either forced into compliance or eliminated. General Brooks stood up and walked to the display. The question is, which category do they put humans in? Tony Garcia had been working on another section of the alien data. He looked up with a grim expression. I'm afraid I have that answer, General. According to their classification system, humans are labeled as a warrior species with uncontrolled development pattern. We're considered a high-risk species that requires immediate integration or termination. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. The aliens didn't see humans as potential friends or allies. They saw them as a threat that needed to be controlled or destroyed. Admiral Sullivan stood up and began pacing. Gentlemen, Dr. Park, I need to know what options we have. Can we negotiate with them? Can we defend ourselves? What are our alternatives? Dr. Park shook her head sadly. Based on the translation of their protocols, negotiation doesn't appear to be an option. They've already made their decision about humanity. We either submit to their integration process, which means giving up our independence and military capabilities, or we face their corrective action protocols. And what does corrective action mean? Admiral Sullivan asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. Complete elimination of the species to prevent future galactic disruption, Dr. Park replied quietly. General Brooks walked back to her chair and sat down heavily. So we're facing an alien invasion by a technologically superior force that wants to either enslave us or wipe us out. This is exactly the scenario we've been preparing for. Admiral Sullivan looked at her in surprise. Preparing for? What do you mean? General Brooks smiled for the first time since the meeting began. Admiral, you didn't think the world's governments have been building space weapons and defense systems just for fun, did you? We've been detecting alien surveillance probes around Earth for over 30 years. We've been preparing for this day for decades. She activated another display showing a complex organizational chart. Project Ironwall has been humanity's most classified military program. We've been developing advanced defense systems, weapons technology, and space-based platforms specifically designed to fight technologically superior enemies. Tony Garcia leaned forward with interest. What kind of systems are we talking about? General? For starters, we've been reverse engineering alien technology from crashed probes for years. We have weapons that the Galactic Collective doesn't know we possess. We've also built a network of hidden military installations throughout the solar system. Admiral Sullivan felt a spark of hope. How advanced are these systems? General Brooks activated another screen showing technical specifications. Our quantum torpedo systems can penetrate advanced energy shields. Our stealth technology makes our ships invisible to most sensor systems. And our automated defense platforms have been positioned at strategic points throughout the solar system. But will it be enough? Dr. Park asked. These aliens have been spacefaring for thousands of years. They have 40 ships coming toward us. Colonel Frank Davis entered the briefing room at that moment, carrying a tablet computer. He saluted Admiral Sullivan and then addressed the group. I'm sorry I'm late, Admiral. I've been coordinating with our deep space monitoring stations. I have updates on the alien fleet. He connected his tablet to the main display system. The good news is that the alien ships are traveling in a standard formation that suggests they're not expecting any resistance. They're approaching Earth like they've done this 1,000 times before with other species. And the bad news? Admiral Sullivan asked. The bad news is that their lead ship is enormous. It's over 5 kilometers long and appears to be heavily armed. Based on the energy readings, it could probably destroy every major city on Earth within a few hours. General Brooks stood up again. Colonel, show them the Prometheus files. Colonel Davis nodded and pulled up another set of technical documents. Admiral, what I'm about to show you is classified at the highest levels. For the past 15 years, we've been building our own fleet of advanced warships using alien technology. We've recovered and reverse-engineered. The screen showed detailed blueprints of human spacecraft that looked nothing like the crude rockets and shuttles the public knew about. These were sleek, powerful vessels with advanced weapons systems and defensive capabilities. We have 23 combat-ready vessels hidden in various locations throughout the solar system, Colonel Davis continued. Each one is equipped with technology that should give us a fighting chance against the alien fleet. Admiral Sullivan studied the specifications carefully. How do our capabilities compare to theirs? In terms of raw power, they still have a significant advantage, Colonel Davis admitted. But we have 2 advantages they don't expect. First, they don't know we have these capabilities. Their intelligence on humanity is decades out of date. Second, our ships are designed specifically for combat, while theirs appear to be designed for intimidation and crowd control. Tony Garcia had been analyzing the alien fleet movements. Admiral, I'm seeing something interesting in their approach pattern. They're not taking any defensive precautions. They're flying in a straight line toward Earth with no escorts or screening. Vessels. They're acting like they expect no resistance at all. General Brooks smiled grimly. Then they're about to get the surprise of their lives. Admiral, I recommend we activate Project Iron Wall immediately. It's time to show these aliens that humanity is not as helpless as they think. Admiral Sullivan looked around the room at her team. 48 hours ago, they had been exploring the galaxy in peace. Now they were preparing for a war that would determine the survival of the human race. But for the first time since receiving the alien ultimatum, she felt confident that humanity had a chance. Gentlemen, Dr. Park, prepare all systems for combat operations. Send word to all Project Iron Wall installations. It's time to defend Earth. The massive alien fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system, their ships appearing like dark thunderclouds against the stars. Fleet Commander Zethkar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's Will, watching the small blue planet that housed the primitive species they had come to integrate. His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Velthon, approached with a datapad. Commander, we have completed our scans of the system. The primitive species has several small orbital stations and a few crude spacecraft, but nothing that poses any threat to our operations. Zethkar nodded, his forearms folded behind his back. In his 300 years of service, he had overseen the integration of dozens of species. This would be routine. Open a communication channel to the planet. Let us deliver the standard integration message. On Earth, President Maria Johnson sat in the Emergency Command Center deep below the White House. General Carl Wright stood beside her, along with Admiral Susan Bell and the rest of the crisis team. The main screen showed the alien fleet arranged in formation just beyond Pluto's orbit. Incoming transmission from the alien fleet, reported Communications Officer Janet Ross. Put it on screen, President Johnson ordered. The screen flickered and an alien face appeared. Zethkar was tall and thin with pale gray skin and large black eyes. When he spoke, the computer's translation system converted his words into English. Primitive, species of the third planet. I am Fleet Commander Zethkar of the Galactic Collective. Your developmental period has ended. You will surrender all space-capable vessels and prepare for guided integration into the Collective. You have 72 of your planetary rotations to comply. Resistance will result in the implementation of corrective protocols. President Johnson stood up and faced the screen. Commander Zethkar, I am President Johnson of the United Earth Government. We have received your message and have prepared our response. She paused, looking directly into the alien commander's large black eyes. We decline your offer. We suggest you reconsider yours. The alien commander's expression changed to what might have been confusion. You do not understand, Primitive. This is not a negotiation. This is a notification of your integration. You will comply or face elimination. We understand perfectly, President Johnson replied calmly. Our answer remains the same. We decline. The transmission ended, and the screen went dark. General Wright smiled grimly. Well, that's done it. They'll be coming for us now. Admiral Bell was already activating communication systems. All Project Ironwall vessels, this is Admiral Bell. Code Black is now in effect. All units proceed to assigned positions immediately. Throughout the solar system, humanity's hidden fleet began to move. The stealth destroyer UES Retribution, commanded by Lieutenant Commander Ben Parker, powered up its engines from its hiding place behind one of Jupiter's moons. The ship's advanced cloaking system made it invisible to conventional sensors as it began its approach toward the alien fleet. On the bridge of the Dominion's Will, Sub-Commander Velthon was reviewing sensor data. Commander, the Primitives have rejected our integration offer. Should we begin corrective protocols immediately? Zethkar considered this. In his experience, primitive species sometimes showed initial defiance before accepting the inevitable. Not yet. Move the fleet to the outer edge of their planetary system. A demonstration of our power should convince them to surrender peacefully. The alien fleet began moving toward Earth, their massive ships advancing in perfect formation. Each vessel was kilometers long, bristling with weapons and protected by energy shields that could deflect most known weapons. Deep in the asteroid belt, Major Alex Turner was making final preparations for launch. His fighter squadron was hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid, their ships equipped with the most advanced weapons humanity had ever built. The quantum torpedoes mounted on his fighter could theoretically penetrate alien shielding, but they had never been tested in actual combat. Red Squadron, this is Major Turner, he said over the communication system. We're about to find out if all our training and preparation was worth it. Remember, these aliens think we're primitives with no real weapons. Let's show them how wrong they are. As the alien fleet approached Mars, they began detecting unusual energy readings. Sub-Commander Velthon frowned at his sensor displays. Commander, I'm reading some strange energy signatures from various locations in the system. The patterns don't match any known primitive technology. Zethkar looked at the readings with mild interest. Probably some kind of primitive sensor network. Nothing that could threaten our vessels. The first indication that something was wrong came when the UES Retribution opened fire from less than 50 kilometers away. The stealth destroyer had approached completely undetected, its advanced cloaking technology keeping it invisible until the moment it attacked. Lieutenant Commander Parker watched with satisfaction as his quantum torpedoes struck the alien cruiser, Strength of Unity. The alien ship's shields flickered and failed, and explosions erupted along its hull. The massive vessel began to list to one side, its weapon systems going dark. Direct hit on Target 1, reported his weapons officer. Their shields are down and they're showing heavy damage. On the Dominion's Will, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Commander, the Strength of Unity is under attack. Sub-Commander Velthon shouted. Where did that attack come from? Zethkar stared at the tactical display in shock. One of his cruisers was badly damaged, but his sensors showed no enemy vessels in the area. How is this possible? Scan again. Before anyone could respond, Major Turner's fighter squadron emerged from the asteroid belt, their ships accelerating toward the alien fleet at incredible speed. The fighters were small and fast, designed to be hard targets for the aliens' large weapon systems. Red Squadron, engage at will, Turner ordered. Target their command ships first. The human fighters swarmed around the alien vessels like angry wasps, their plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes striking at critical systems. The aliens tried to respond, but their weapons were designed to fight large capital ships, not small, fast-moving fighters. Another alien cruiser, the Voice of Order, took multiple hits from the fighter squadron. Its main reactor began to overload, and the ship's crew struggled to maintain control as explosions rocked the vessel. "This is impossible," Zethkar roared. "These are supposed to be primitives. How do they have weapons that can penetrate our shields?" The situation became even worse when Captain Rachel Kim's battleship, UES Vengeance, emerged from behind Europa, leading a fleet of human warships. The massive vessel was almost as large as an alien cruiser, but it moved with surprising speed and agility. "All human vessels, this is Captain Kim. Execute attack pattern Delta, target their flagship." The human fleet opened fire with everything they had. Quantum torpedoes, plasma cannons, and particle beam weapons lit up space as they struck. The alien formation. The aliens had expected to face a few primitive rockets, not a coordinated attack by advanced warships. Zethkar watched in horror as his carefully organized fleet began to fall apart. 3 of his cruisers were already heavily damaged, and his own flagship was taking hits from multiple directions. The primitive species he had come to integrate were fighting back with weapons that shouldn't exist. "Sub-Commander, order all vessels to retreat to the outer system," he commanded. "We need to regroup and reassess the situation." "But Commander, we outnumber them significantly. Surely we can overwhelm their defenses." "Look at your tactical display," Zethkar snapped. "We've lost 3 ships in the first 10 minutes of combat. These are not the primitives we expected to find." As the alien fleet began its retreat, President Johnson watched the battle from the command center. The main screen showed alien ships, withdrawing beyond Pluto's orbit, several of them trailing debris and atmosphere from battle damage. "Admiral Bell, what's our status?" she asked. "We've taken some damage, but nothing critical. The aliens are retreating. I think we surprised them." General Wright was studying the tactical reports. More than surprised them. They came here expecting to intimidate a bunch of cavemen with spears. Instead, they ran into a coordinated defense force with weapons they've never seen before. Lieutenant Commander Parker's voice came over the communication system from the Retribution. "Command, this is Parker. The aliens are regrouping at the edge of the system. They're not leaving, just pulling back to figure out what hit them." "President," Johnson nodded grimly. "This was just the first round. They'll be back, and next time they'll be ready for us." Admiral Bell was already working on tactical plans. "We need to use this time to prepare for their next attack. They know now that we're not helpless, but they still have superior numbers and technology." Captain Kim's voice joined the communication channel. "Command, this is Kim. I recommend we don't wait for them to attack again. We should take the fight to them while they're still confused and disorganized." In the depths of space, Zethkar stared at the small blue planet that had just humiliated his fleet. For the first time in his long career, he faced an enemy that had been preparing for this moment. The primitive species had become something far more dangerous than anyone in the Galactic Collective had imagined. News of humanity's victory against the Galactic Collective spread quickly throughout the galaxy. On the planet Kethmore, Ambassador Velthara received the report from Fleet Commander Zethkar with growing disbelief. She read the message 3 times before accepting that it was real. The humans had not only refused integration, they had defeated a collective compliance fleet. In over 2,000 years of galactic expansion, no species had ever successfully resisted the collective's first contact protocols. The implications were staggering. She immediately called an emergency session of the Hegemony Council. Representatives from 7 different species gathered in the massive council chamber on the capital world of Velteran. The mood was tense as Velthara presented the battle report. "Honored council members," she began, her voice echoing in the vast chamber. "The human integration mission has failed. Fleet Commander Zethkar reports that the primitive species possesses advanced weapons technology and organized military forces. Council, member Drexon of the warrior caste, stood up, his massive frame towering over the other representatives. This is impossible. Our intelligence reports indicated that the humans had barely achieved basic spaceflight. How could they possibly have weapons capable of defeating our cruisers? Velthera activated the holographic display showing the battle data. According to the fleet commander, the humans used stealth technology to approach undetected weapons that can penetrate our standard shielding, and coordinated tactical formations that suggest extensive military training. The council chamber erupted in confused voices as the representatives tried to understand how their intelligence could have been so wrong. Finally, council member Zixara of the science cast called for order. "The question is not how this happened," she said in her calm, analytical voice. "The question is what we do about it. If the humans can resist integration, other species may attempt to follow their example." Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Nathan Gray had been appointed as Director of Xenological Affairs. He was humanity's new point person for dealing with alien contact, and his first task was to establish communication with any reasonable members of the Galactic Collective. Working with a team of linguists and communication specialists, Dr. Gray had been monitoring alien communication channels for 3 weeks since the battle. What he discovered was both encouraging and disturbing. "President Johnson," he reported during the daily briefing, "we've been intercepting communications between various alien species. The collective is not as unified as they want us to believe. There are significant political divisions among the member species." President Johnson leaned forward with interest. "What kind of divisions?" "Many of the species were forced into the collective through the same integration process they tried to use on us. Some of them are questioning whether the collective's expansion policies are justified. Our resistance has given them hope that change is possible. General Wright was studying intelligence reports at the same time. We're also detecting increased military activity throughout their territory. It seems our little victory has made them nervous about controlling their own member species." Captain Jennifer Walsh had spent the last month on a dangerous mission aboard the stealth ship UES Shadow. Her orders were to gather intelligence on collective military installations and find potential allies among the alien species. She had successfully infiltrated the outer regions of collective space and made contact with a rebel group from the Kethmori species. These aliens had been integrated into the collective only 50 years ago and still remembered their independence. "Captain Walsh to Earth Command," she transmitted from a hidden location near the Kethmori homeworld. "I have established contact with the resistance movement here. They're very interested in working with us." Her communication was received by Dr. Gray, who had been hoping for exactly this kind of breakthrough. "Captain, what can you tell us about their capabilities?" "The Kethmori have maintained a secret network throughout collective space. They have detailed information about military installations, supply lines, and troop movements. More importantly, they have allies among at least 3 other species that were forcibly integrated. Back on the collective capital world, War Marshal Drexon was assembling the largest military force in the galaxy's recent history. The Grand Fleet would consist of over 300 vessels from all member species, with enough firepower to destroy entire star systems. "This human problem must be solved decisively," he announced to his gathered commanders. "We cannot allow a single primitive species to inspire rebellion throughout the galaxy. The Grand Fleet will crush their resistance and make an example that will be remembered for 1,000 years." Admiral Velkorin of the Space Forces was reviewing the fleet composition. "War Marshal, assembling this many vessels will strain our resources significantly. Many of our member species are already questioning the cost of maintaining such a large military force." Drexhan's expression darkened. "The cost of allowing rebellion to spread would be far greater. If the humans succeed in maintaining their independence, every species in the collective will begin to think they can do the same." On Earth, General Paul Newman was coordinating humanity's response to intelligence reports about the approaching Grand Fleet. The scale of the alien response was enormous, far beyond what Earth's military could handle through conventional means. "We can't fight 300 ships with our current fleet," he told the Defense Council. We need a different strategy. Commander Tracy Ross had been working on exactly such a strategy. She presented her plan, which she called Operation Wildfire, to the assembled military leaders. Instead of waiting for the Grand Fleet to arrive and trying to defend Earth, we take the war to them, she explained. We use the intelligence from Captain Walsh and the Kethmori resistance to attack their supply lines and support infrastructure throughout the galaxy. Admiral Bell studied the tactical projections. It's risky. We'd be spreading our forces thin across multiple star systems. But it's our best chance, Tracy replied. The Collective's greatest weakness is that they're overextended. They control hundreds of worlds with a military force that's designed more for intimidation than actual warfare. If we can disrupt their logistics and inspire widespread rebellion, their empire could collapse from within. Intelligence Officer Kyle Anderson had been analyzing economic data intercepted from Collective communications. His findings supported Tracy's strategy. The Collective's economy is already under strain, he reported. Many member species are tired of supporting the military costs required to maintain the empire. If we can demonstrate that the Collective isn't invincible, it could trigger economic and political collapse. President Johnson made the difficult decision to approve Operation Wildfire. It was a desperate gamble, but the alternative was waiting for the Grand Fleet to arrive and facing certain destruction. Within days, human ships began appearing throughout Collective space. The UES Thunder struck a major supply depot in the Veltar system, destroying months' worth of military provisions. The UES Lightning attacked a communication relay station that coordinated fleet movements across 3 star systems. Each attack was coordinated with local resistance movements. The Kethmori rebels provided intelligence and support, while other species began their own acts of rebellion. On the mining world of Zephyrus, the local population rose up against their Collective. Overseers, on the agricultural planet of Granos, workers went on strike, disrupting food supplies to military installations. War Marshal Drexhan watched in growing frustration as reports of rebellion and sabotage flooded in from across the galaxy. The Boetiwers humans had somehow turned a simple integration mission into a galaxy-wide crisis. How are they doing this? He demanded of his intelligence officers. How can a single primitive species coordinate attacks across hundreds of light years? The answer came from an unexpected source. A Kethmori communications officer who had been secretly working with the Resistance sent a message directly to Drexhan's headquarters. War Marshal, the message read, "The humans are not fighting alone. They have inspired half the galaxy to remember what freedom means. Your empire is built on fear and oppression. The humans have shown us that fear can be overcome." As the Grand Fleet finally departed for Earth, it left behind a galaxy in flames. Rebellions had broken out on dozens of worlds. Supply lines were under constant attack, and the very foundations of the Galactic Collective were beginning to crumble. Captain, Walsh transmitted one final report from her position near Kethmor. Earth Command, the Grand Fleet is on its way to you, but their empire is falling apart behind them. Whatever happens in the final battle, the galaxy will never be the same. You've given every oppressed species in the galaxy hope for freedom, President. Johnson received the message just as long-range sensors detected the approaching Grand Fleet. 300 alien warships were coming to destroy Earth, but humanity had already won something more important than the coming battle. They had won the war for the soul of the galaxy. The Grand Fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system like a dark storm cloud blocking out the stars. 300 alien warships arranged themselves in attack formation, their massive hulls bristling with weapons that could turn planets into dust. War Marshal Drexhan stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, watching the small blue world that had caused so much trouble. "Begin the final assault," he commanded. "I want that planet reduced to rubble within 6 hours." But Earth was no longer the defenseless world the aliens expected to find. Admiral Grant Miller watched the approaching fleet from the bridge of the orbital defense station Victory Prime. Over the past months, humanity had turned their entire solar system into a fortress. Hidden weapons platforms emerged from asteroids throughout the belt. Automated defense drones swarmed out of concealed bases on Mars and the outer moons. the space around Earth filled with defensive installations that the aliens had never detected. All stations. This is Admiral Miller. He broadcast to the human fleet. Today we fight not just for Earth, but for every species in the galaxy that dreams of freedom. Make every shot count. The battle began when the alien vanguard encountered the first ring of Earth's defenses. Massive plasma cannons hidden in the asteroid belt opened fire, their beams striking the lead alien cruisers with devastating effect. The aliens had expected some resistance, but not the coordinated defense network that humanity had built. Fleet. Commander Victor Hayes led the human attack fleet aboard the battleship UES Defiant. His mission was to strike directly at the alien flagship while the defensive systems held off the main fleet. It was a desperate plan, but humanity's only chance of victory lay in destroying the alien command structure. "All ships follow me in," Hayes ordered as his fleet accelerated toward the center of the alien formation. "Target the big one. If we can take out their flagship, we can win this war." The human ships moved through the battle like deadly arrows, their advanced stealth systems and speed, allowing them to avoid most of the alien weapons. They had learned from the first battle that mobility and surprise were their greatest advantages against the larger alien vessels. On Mars, Colonel Sandy White commanded the ground defense forces as alien troop transports began landing on the red planet's surface. The aliens had decided that if they couldn't quickly defeat the human fleet, they would capture the human colonies and use them as bargaining chips. "Bring them in close," she ordered her troops as the alien soldiers advanced across the Martian landscape. The aliens moved in rigid formations, following standard collective military doctrine that emphasized overwhelming force and predictable tactics. What they encountered was something completely different. Human soldiers used the terrain to their advantage, striking from unexpected directions and then disappearing before the aliens could respond. They fought as individuals and small units, adapting their tactics moment by moment as the situation changed. "These humans fight like savages," complained Commander Velcorin as his troops struggled to advance. "They don't follow any recognizable military doctrine." Colonel White smiled grimly as she watched the alien forces become confused and disorganized. "That's because we don't have military doctrine. We have something better. We have soldiers who think for themselves." In space, the battle raged around Earth's orbital defenses. Dr. Michelle Clark, working from a research station hidden behind the moon, had made a crucial discovery about alien technology. Their weapons and shields operated on fixed frequencies that couldn't be easily changed during combat. "All human vessels, this is Dr. Clark," she broadcast. "I'm transmitting new frequency settings for your weapons. The aliens can't adapt their defenses quickly enough to counter rapid frequency changes." The human ships immediately began rotating their weapon frequencies, and the effect was dramatic. Alien shields that had been nearly impenetrable suddenly became vulnerable. Human plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes began punching through alien defenses with devastating results. War Marshal Drexhan watched in growing horror as his grand fleet began to fall apart. Human fighters swarmed around his massive capital ships like insects, too small and fast to hit effectively. His cruisers were taking heavy damage from weapons that seemed to adapt and change faster than his crews could respond. "How is this possible?" he demanded of his tactical officers. "We have 300 ships against their 50. We should be crushing them." The answer came from his intelligence officer, who had been analyzing human combat patterns. "War Marshal, the humans don't fight like any species we've encountered before. They change their tactics constantly, they operate independently without central coordination, and they seem to learn from each engagement." Captain Joe Martinez aboard the destroyer UES Fury had coordinated with rebel forces throughout the galaxy for a simultaneous strike. As the battle reached its climax around Earth, explosions erupted at collective military installations across dozens of star systems. "This is Martinez to all rebel forces," he transmitted. "Now, hit them with everything you have." The Kethmori rebels destroyed the main communication array at Veltar Prime. The Granos agricultural workers sabotaged the food processing centers that supplied the Grand Fleet. On Zephyrus, the mining colonies cut off the supply of rare metals needed for alien weapons production. War Marshal Drexhan's command structure began to collapse as reports of rebellion and destruction flooded in from across the galaxy. His fleet was fighting alone, cut off from supplies and reinforcements while the empire he was supposed to protect burned behind him. The turning point came when Fleet Commander Hayes succeeded in his desperate mission. The UES Defiant, supported by a squadron of human fighters, broke through the alien defensive screen and launched a full torpedo spread at the Eternal Dominion. The massive alien flagship's shields failed under the concentrated assault. Explosions rippled along its hull as critical systems went offline. War Marshal Drexhan felt his ship shudder around him as the bridge lights flickered and died. "War Marshal, we're losing main power," his engineer reported. "Weapon systems are offline. Engines are failing. We need to evacuate immediately." But Drexhan was staring at the tactical display, watching as his grand fleet began to retreat. Ship after ship was pulling back from Earth's defenses, their crews unwilling to continue a battle they couldn't win. "Signal the fleet," he said quietly. "General retreat. We're withdrawing from this system." Admiral Miller watched from Victory Prime as the alien fleet began its withdrawal. Human ships pursued them to the edge of the solar system, but he ordered them not to follow. The battle was won, but at a terrible cost. Earth's cities bore the scars of orbital bombardment. Millions of people had died in the fighting, and entire sections of the planet's surface had been turned into smoking craters. The price of freedom had been measured in blood and destruction. President Johnson addressed the world from the ruins of New Geneva, one of the cities that had been hit hardest during the battle. Her face was tired and her voice was heavy with grief, but her words carried hope. "We have won our freedom," she said, "but we must never forget what it cost us. We fought not just for ourselves, but for every species in the galaxy that has suffered under oppression. Today marks the beginning of a new age." Commander Laura Thompson, who had survived the battle aboard the cruiser UES Independence, delivered the final assessment to Earth Command. "The Galactic Collective's fleet has withdrawn beyond our sensor range. Long-range communications indicate that rebellions are continuing throughout their territory. Their empire is collapsing." She paused, looking out at the stars that no longer seemed dark and threatening. "We arrived late to the galactic community, but we've shown them that late doesn't mean unprepared. The question now is what kind of galactic citizens we choose to become." Dr. Gray, working with representatives from the rebel species, began establishing the framework for a new galactic alliance. Unlike the collective, this alliance would be based on voluntary cooperation rather than forced integration. "We have a choice," he told the assembled diplomats from a dozen different species. "We can become the very thing we fought against, or we can build something better. A galaxy where every species is free to choose its own path." The war was over, but the real work was just beginning. Humanity had proven that they could fight for their freedom, but now they had to prove they could be worthy guardians of that freedom for others. As the last alien ships disappeared into the depths of space, Earth began the long process of healing and rebuilding. But the galaxy would never be the same. The age of the Galactic Collective was ending, and a new age of freedom was beginning. The humans had arrived late to the galactic community, but they had brought with them something the galaxy had almost forgotten: the idea that freedom was worth any sacrifice and that no one had the right to take it away.